The dust rose first, thin, trembling in the late afternoon. Heat, before the sound of boots and shouting tore through the quiet road. Eleanor Graves had lived alone in her pine-shadowed cabin for almost 12 years, long enough to recognize the difference between the wind and trouble. This was trouble. She stepped out onto her porch just as a teenage Apache boy was thrown face first into the dirt near the rusted cattle fence, across from her land. He couldn't have been more than 16. His hair was long, tied with faded red cloth, and his hands were already bleeding where the gravel had bitten into his skin. 2 county deputies stood over him, yelling accusations that made no sense: trespassing, resisting theft, words thrown like stones, careless and cruel. Eleanor's heart pounded. She had seen this before. Not here, but years ago, far away, when silence had cost lives. One deputy kicked the boy's ribs. The sound, dull and final, split something inside her. "Stop!" Eleanor shouted before she realized she was moving. Her boots hit the dirt as she crossed the boundary between safety and consequence. The deputies turned, surprised to see a white-haired woman in her late 40s standing with her hands shaking, but her voice steady. "He hasn't done anything," she said. "I watched him walk this road. He never touched your truck." "You're lying?" The younger deputy laughed, the sound sharp and empty. "Ma'am, go back to your cabin." The older one tightened his grip on the boy's collar and lifted him just enough so Eleanor could see his face, eyes wide, jaw clenched, refusing to cry. That was when Eleanor noticed the old scar across his cheek. Apache. She remembered the stories her grandmother had whispered, the ones never taught in school. She stepped closer. "If you touch him again," she said, "I will record everything and I will testify. I won't be quiet." The deputies hesitated. That hesitation saved the boy's life. Eleanor pulled out her phone, hands trembling but determined, and started filming. The older deputy cursed, shoved the boy away, and muttered threats as they backed toward their cruiser. "You're protecting the wrong kind of people," he warned. Eleanor didn't answer. She knelt beside the boy as the car drove off in a cloud of dust. He struggled to sit, pride warring with pain. "Easy," she said softly, offering him water from her canteen. He hesitated, then drank. "My name is Eleanor," he nodded. "Taza," he replied. "They said I stole something." "You didn't," she said. "I know." For a moment, the world was quiet again, but Eleanor felt it deep in her bones. This wasn't over. That night, she cleaned Taza's wounds inside her cabin. He barely spoke, but when he did, his words carried weight. He told her about the reservation 30 miles away, about deputies who came too often, about boys who disappeared and came back broken, or didn't come back at all. Eleanor listened, guilt and anger knotting in her chest. When she offered him food, he bowed his head in thanks. Before leaving, he paused at the door. "They will come back," he said. "For you." Eleanor met his eyes. "Then let them." The knock came just after sunrise, not sharp, not threatening, but heavy, deliberate. Eleanor opened the door expecting deputies. Instead, she saw them, men and women, young and old, standing quietly among the trees. There were more than she could count at first, their presence calm but unyielding. Feathers caught the light, faces painted with purpose, not anger. At the front stood Taza, his posture straight, his injuries still visible. Behind him, warriors, elders, mothers, 176. Apache had come to her cabin. No one spoke for a long moment. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Finally, an elder stepped forward. His voice was low, steady. "You stood when others turned away?" Eleanor swallowed hard. "I did what anyone should." The elder shook his head. "No, you did what most refuse." News had traveled fast, faster than fear. The deputies had returned to the reservation the night before, boasting, laughing. They never expected the response. The Apache didn't come with weapons raised. They came with witnesses, with unity, with memory. By noon, county vehicles lined the dirt road. Deputies stood uncertain, outnumbered not by force, but by truth. Phones recorded. Elders spoke. Eleanor stood beside Taza, her hands no longer shaking. When the sheriff arrived, his tone was different, careful. Apologies were offered. Investigations promised. It wasn't justice, not yet, but it was a beginning. The Apache remained until the sun dipped low, until it was clear Eleanor was no longer alone. When they finally left, the forest felt different, safer, alive. That night Eleanor sat on her porch, listening to the wind move through the trees. She understood something then. Courage isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with weapons or shouting. Sometimes it's just one person refusing to look away. And sometimes when you stand, 176 people stand with you. The deputies thought the story had ended when the Apache left Eleanor's cabin. They were wrong. What followed didn't come with shouting or fists. It came quietly, like a shadow that never leaves. 3 days after the gathering, Eleanor noticed the patrol cars no longer slowed near her road. The deputies who once laughed now avoided her eyes at the general store. Something had shifted. Power hadn't disappeared. It had been watched. And watched power behaves differently. Taza returned at dusk on the 4th day. He didn't come alone. 2 elders walked with him, their steps slow but grounded, as if the land itself moved with them. They sat on Eleanor's porch, and for the first time, she felt she was being welcomed into a story far older than her cabin, older than fear. One elder spoke of history, not from books, but from blood and breath. He spoke of times when standing up meant death, and of times when silence meant extinction. You broke a pattern, he told her. Eleanor felt tears burn her eyes. She hadn't tried to be brave. She had simply refused to be small. But courage always demands a price. That night a rock shattered Eleanor's window. No note, no face. Just a message. She didn't call the sheriff. Instead, she fixed the glass herself at sunrise, hands steady, spine straight. By afternoon, word had spread. The Apache returned, not 176 this time, but enough. They repaired the fence, reinforced the porch, shared food, laughter, stories. Protection doesn't always look like defense. Sometimes it looks like community. A week later, the county announced disciplinary action against the deputies involved. Body cam footage, Eleanor's footage, had spoken louder than badges. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was real. Taza stood beside Eleanor when the news reached them. "You didn't just help me," he said. "You reminded them we are not invisible." Eleanor looked out at the trees, the road, the open sky. "And neither are you," she replied. From that day on, Eleanor's cabin became something else, not a hiding place, but a signal. Travelers stopped to rest. Stories were shared. The road that once carried fear now carried memory and meaning. And Eleanor understood the final truth. Standing up once can echo for generations. If this chapter stirred something inside you, if you believe a moment can change many lives, subscribe to this channel, because the next story won't just entertain you.